Hey everyone, welcome to the Pre-algebra 4.4 video on least common multiple. Alright, what's the least common multiple? Well, let's first talk about what a multiple is. Okay, so a multiple of a whole number is the, that should be all one sentence. Multiple of a whole number is the product of that number and any other non-zero whole number. Okay, so if I said, let's talk about the multiples of the number 8. Okay, multiples of 8. Okay, well, the first multiple of 8 would be 8 times 1, which is 8. The second multiple, 8 times 2, 16. Then what? 24. 8 times 4 give you 32. 8 times 5 give you 40, and so on and so forth, right? So those are the multiples of 8. So that's pretty simple, right? We've done that for a long time. But let's talk about a common multiple. So a common multiple is a multiple that is shared by 2 or more numbers. So let's talk about the multiples of 12, right? So the first one would be 1 times 12, which is 12. Second would be 2 times 12, which is 24. Third would be 12 times 3, which is 36, 48, 60, and so on and so forth, right? Okay, so that we can tell here that we have some common multiples, right? So 8 doesn't show up down here, 16 doesn't show up down here. However, 24 does, right? So you got 24 showing up there, 32, 36, no more shared. Let's keep going. Another multiple of 8 would be 48. Right? And so we'd have 48 there and 48 on bottom. So there's another common multiple. Okay, and we can keep going and we'd find more and more and more. Right? And basically go on into infinity. But next what we need to talk about is the least common multiple. Okay, and I'm not even going to write a definition because it's exactly what it sounds like. Right? So for example, up here with 8 and 12, we found 2 common multiples, and if we were to keep going, we'd circle more and circle more that they share. But the least one is going to be what? Well, it's going to be the least one, right? 24. 24 is the smallest number that you can take 8 and multiply it by another number, and then 12 and multiply it by another number, and get to the same number, right? 24 is the smallest multiple, or the least common multiple, when you're talking about the numbers 8 and 12. All right, so why don't you take a second, and I want you to find the least common multiple of 6 and 10. So pause the video, do that, and when you're done, play the video. Okay, so for multiples of 6, 12, 18, 24, 30, 36, 42, and I'll stop there. And let's do 10. Well, I can do 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, so on and so forth. All right, so are there any common multiples? They don't share a 6. Do they share a 12? No. 18? No. 24? No. 30? 30. Look at that. Conveniently enough, they both share a 30, right? So if I wanted to kind of keep on going there, down here, let's see, well, 42, add to that another 6, so 48. Let's see, another 6 would be 54. And then, I get 60. So there's another common multiple, but it's not the least common multiple, right? We want 30, which is the least common multiple there of 6 and 10. All right, so now though, we're going to take what we just learned and it's going to help us to find the least common multiple of monomials that contain variables. So we're not just doing 9 and 15, we're doing 9xy squared and 15x squared y. So our first step is going to be to find the least common multiple of the numbers. So what we just did. So let's do that real quick. We got 9 and we have 15. Okay, so let's see, multiples of 9. Well, 9, 18, 27, 36, 45, 54, 63. We could stop there. We could obviously keep on going and going and going, but let's see, we might have enough. 15. So we got 15, 30, 45, and do I need to keep going? The answer is no. Why? Just found the least common multiple between 9 and 15. Now, I'm not done, but But we have found that 45 is going to be part of our answer. So what I like to do is I'm going to write my answer box down here, and I'm going to write 15. It's going to be the first part of my answer. Now, we've only dealt with the numbers. How do we deal with the variable parts now? Well, here's what I do. Okay, step 2 is going to be to make a table. All right? Now, the table is going to look like this. But I'm going to have some columns and some rows, and on each problem that you encounter where you need to find the least common multiple, and there's variables, it's going to have a different amount of rows and columns depending on what monomials you're working with. Okay, so in this case, we're going to have 2 columns because I have 2 monomials. So I'm going to label the first column 9xy squared, and the second column will be 15x squared y. I'm going to draw a line down the middle, right? So I have 2 columns. Now the question is, how many rows am I going to have? This has to deal with what variables I'm working with. So there's x's and there's y's. So I'm going to have 2 rows. One is going to stand for the x's. One's going to stand for the y's. And split that. So there we go. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at our table and we're going to ask ourselves, how many x's are in 9xy squared? Well, I see 1, so I'm just going to write 1. That came from right there. Now, how many x's are in 15x squared y? Well, there's 2, and instead of writing, it's not going to be 2x, I could either write x times x, or to kind of help ourselves further a step that we would have to do later on anyway, I'm just going to write that as x squared. So that's not wrong, but I'm just going to mark it out because this is the preferred. Now here, how many y's in 9xy squared? There's 2, and I'm going to write that as y squared because there's a y squared there. Now how about the y's in 15x squared y? Well, there's just 1, so I'm going to write y. All right, so I've made the table, and now what? Well, our last step is going to be circle the boxes with the greater number of variables. And it's going to go row by row. So I'll look at the first row. Which one of these 2 has more x's? Because we're talking about the x row. Well, this one, right? So I'm going to circle him. Now down here, which one has the greater amount of y's? Well, this is y squared, and this only is 1y, so we're going to go there. So what's our answer? Well, the step 4, I could call it put it all together. Okay, and so we go to our answer box, right? And we already filled in the 15 because we found that the greatest or the least common multiple of 9 and 15 was oh my goodness, it shouldn't be 15. Sorry guys if you were confused earlier. That should be 45. All right, 45. Sorry about that. So we found that 45 is the least common multiple between these 2 numbers. Now what comes next? Well, we're going to put it all together. So 45 and then what? Well, 45, then we'll go in alphabetical order. X squared, that came from right there. And then y squared, which comes from right there. So 45 x squared y squared, that is your answer. That monomial right there is the least common multiple of 9xy squared and 15x squared y. Alright, so I want you guys to try this one out real quick. Alright, I want you to find the least common multiple of 3a squared bc and 10b to the 4th c. Pause the video, try it, play it when you're done. Alright, so remember first we're going to find the LCM, or least common multiple, of the number parts. So let's look at 3, I'll do it in the appropriate color, so 3 red, and then 10. Alright, so least common multiple of 3 and 10. Well, multiples of 3. 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21, 24, 27, 30, 33, and let's stop there. 10, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, and you know what? I know I can stop already because, let's see, 10, 20, 30. Is there a 30 up here? Yeah, right there. So 30 is the least common multiple of 3 and 10. So as part of my answer, which I'm already going to write, it's going to be 30. Now what comes next? The variable parts, right? So the question is, how many columns, how many rows in our table? Remember, our table is going to be set up like that. And each column is going to have the header of one of the monomials. So the first one was 3a squared bc. So I'm going to write 3a squared bc. And then I'm going to do 10b to the fourth c. Now what if I had 3 monomials, or 4, or 5? Still do the same thing, right? You would just have more columns. Now the rows, so there's our columns, the rows are going to stand for what variables are present. Well, I have an a there, and I don't have one down here, but because I have a's in this term, in this monomial, I need to have a row for a's, and then I'll need to have a row for b's, and then I'll need to have a row for, you guessed it, c's. So make sure you have 3 rows. Now, talk to me about the a's in 3a squared bc. There's not 2 a's, but there's a squared there. How about a's here? There's none. So I just usually write a line. There's no a's in 10b to the fourth c. Now how about the b's in this term? There's 1, so just write b. How about the b's in this term? There's 4 b's, or b to the fourth. Yeah, it's not 4b, it's b to the fourth. How about c's here? There's 1. And c's there, also 1. So remember what comes next? We're going to go row by row and circle the box with more variables. Okay, so out of these two, which has more a's? Well, obviously that one. Out of these two, which has more b's? This one. And out of this one, which has more c's? Interesting question, right? The answer is both. Doesn't matter, right? So I'll just circle in between, because they both have one c to offer. So we put it all together as our last step. We already have the numerical part that came from up there, and now we have a squared, b to the fourth, and you could pick from there or there. Again, I circled just the middle, c. So 30a squared b to the fourth c is your answer. And that is all I have for you guys on this video. I'll see you in class.